Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel, PumpkinBecki. In this week's video we're going to have a look at my spring flowering bonsai. Let's get started. We're starting with my Forsythia. This is Forsythia intermedia linwood. It was bought as a normal garden tree from probably B&Q, I think. Possibly a garden centre, not sure. It's a funny little tree. It hasn't got a very good shape. I've done some fairly big cuts on it. We've got some old cut paste here on this wound. But you can see that it tends to throw out these really long, straight bits of growth. However, it does like sending out back buds, so that's good. So I've got more areas of budding happening. It's very one-sided. This side is pretty much devoid of growth. It would be nice to sort of fill that back section in a bit. The flowers are lovely. They're a real daffodil yellow flower. Perfect for this time of year. Absolutely quintessential spring colour. I've got some little bits of dead where I've pruned back previously. That's now died back and I can just take those out. So it's good to remember sometimes that trees and shrubs will die back. So if you cut back exactly to a bud, sometimes the plant isn't able to compartmentalise that wound. So it ends up dying back to the next wound, which may not be the one you wanted. It may not be pointing in the right direction. So sometimes it's better to be a little bit cautious and actually give yourself, that was probably about 10 mil. Probably don't need anything like that long, but just give yourself some safety, some wiggle room. So I think we can come in and just take those out now. They've completely died back and compartmentalised. And yeah, we can see what this little tree is going to do for this year. So we'll do a bit of weeding, but we'll also take a toothbrush to the bark and just make sure that the moss isn't going to start degrading the trunk bark. You can use a little bit of vinegar to help with that. I haven't got nearly enough moss growth for that, so we won't worry. Oh, I was just going to inspect that, but the cut paste has actually popped straight off. I can see it's trying to form a scar. It does make huge wounds though. I know I cut off quite a branch there, but you sort of do tend to get this inverse tapering where the pruning has happened. Up here I have a stump that I cut off and I'd like to refine that now. This is definitely a shrub that grows branches in opposing pairs, so that kind of makes decisions a little bit tricky when you're looking at the primary branches, because you end up with these matching branches, sometimes called bar branches. So as with all deciduous trees, you're looking for a sort of 45-degree upwards and outwards motion when you're setting your branches, and they can deviate along that, but the general trend will be 45 degrees. Hopefully here you can make out that I have one of these bar branches where both buds have activated and created branching. And it's not ideal. Ideally you're looking almost for a spiral of branches. So I want my first one here, next one here slightly higher. I could do with one here slightly higher again, and I have my little one here, and then we could come to this one. So I think realistically I need to take this one off. It is it's not well placed. It's a shame, because all I seem to do with this poor tree is take things off it. But I mean, and from there I could actually look to make this the new leader rather than continuing up here. I could bring this right down. Too tall for a shohin just yet, but you know, this does have quite brittle wood, so it is tricky to bend sort of primary well lignified branches. It's better to try and do softer, newer growth. So really I think trunk chopping is the only way to make any real radical changes to this tree. So we've got quite a nice useful bud happening here, which will give me my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to rush into that decision. What I will do is just clip the top out. Any buds you definitely don't want, I would tend to rub off at this stage. And it is just a case of rubbing your thumb across the bud and it will just break off. I'm going to use this piece of wire to try and drop this branch and raise this branch. Because this particular plant seems to put on a lot of scar tissue, I think that's just going to be how this tree is going to be. Not particularly pretty, but hey, the flowers make up for it. Where I've taken off the moss and left little holes, I've just given it a little top dressing with some new Acadoma pumice lava. And scatter that over the top. And that's ready to go back outside. Now we're looking at my Chaenomeles, my Japanese quince, which is a gorgeous flower. It's funny, I'm not an orange flower person, but there's something about this pretty, almost salmony pink, corally colour. I'm not aiming to repot any of my flowering trees this year, so I'm just doing tidy ups, weed removal, that sort of thing. Again, get the moss off the trunk. Whilst moss is wonderfully useful on the soil surface, it's not so great on the actual trunk of the tree. It will start to degrade the bark. If you've got a lot of it, you can go at it with some vinegar, but I don't need to. Some trees which have really delicate bark anyway, generally sort of conifers, where it forms almost plates of bark, you do want to be super careful, otherwise you can just take whole plates off. So far better to maybe treat that with a dilute vinegar rather than actually scrubbing where you might accidentally lift off one of the plates. Okay, that's the weeding done. Now it's time to have a little look at the structure. She's coming along really nicely. I did sort of lose some branches last year, but yeah, she's rebalancing. I'm not going to do anything too drastic to her. I haven't really got any canopy happening over here, only over here. It would be nice if I could do something about that. Maybe I've got some other buds coming, or maybe by just taking back the tips I can encourage other buds to push. The Chaenomeles does tend to put on quite sort of straight, strong growth, so you do have to get at it quite quickly before it's sort of too straight and too long to actually do anything really with. So just bear that in mind, really. Again, I'm going to leave myself some little bits for dieback. Nip out any old bits that I took out for dieback. Now, I am not licking my finger when I'm applying the cut paste. Cut paste will tend to stick to you instead of the cut. My habit was to... but one of my viewers kindly pointed out that probably wasn't the best thing to be doing. So I've stopped. I have internalised that and I stop myself from doing it. Chaenomeles is actually a remarkably tolerant plant, and I would say is therefore pretty good for beginners. I've got some terrible scarring in places, and in fact here this branch actually cracked while I was trying to wire it. I put cut paste on it and I squished it back together and wired around it. I could have used raffia or something like that to try and seal it, but it's still going. It's still going strong. This branch is still growing quite happily. So I actually think this is a very beginner friendly tree, and you have the benefit of these beautiful blossoms. I've just come and added a little bit of new Akadama pumice lava mixture to where I had to take out some of the moss from between the roots. So it's just filling that gap back in. Once the leaves have fully pushed and started to harden off, then we can start looking to apply food. I lost a few flower buds, but that really isn't an issue. The next two trees are my Chaenomeles. Here's my little one that I've had for the longest. It was bought as nursery stock, just a simple shrub, and it's so sweet. I love it. Look how much flower it's got, and this is not all of its flower. It's already had some, and they've come and gone. So if I wanted to repot, now would be the time to do it. I'd have to take off all the flowers and redo that, but I'm not going to. Pretty sure she was repotted last year, year before. Akadama's still nice and intact. Just going to do exactly the same. Just clean off the moss from the bark, check everything's okay, and then tidy up any prune sites. I'm also going to take off the wire. This has been on all winter, and I just want to make sure that it doesn't start to bite in as the growth starts to swell and thicken. I am really pleased on this tree that even though this tree is of no age at all, we are getting those classic cherry tree striations on the bark. I've just had a quick look at my other Kojo and you're not seeing that, but yeah, this is lovely. And there she is after her spring refresh. And the last tree today is my other Chaenomeles. Much bigger. It had its first styling in July 21. So about 18 months ago. Yeah, something like that. Really doing well, really pleased with this. But because it's only had its first styling, there's quite a bit of tidying up still to think about. Things that I may still take off. So I've just cleaned back some of the moss. Now I'm going to take the wire off again. This was wired last year, so I want to make sure that's not going to bite in. I think I might actually take the opportunity to take this branch off. Feels quite low, and I don't think the tree loses anything by losing it. Because I'm also going to rub those buds off. You can see here that the leader is really too tall, but I don't want to drop it down too quick. It's still very early in this tree's development. I don't want to bring it down too hard. I would be prepared to take off this slightly ugly branch, which clearly I've already cut once, or it's been knocked. It looks like it's got liquid cut paste on it, to be honest with you. This is a much nicer, finer piece of growth compared to what's happening here, which is tending towards a little bit of inverse taper. So I actually think I'm going to just take that top off. I've got some nice adventitious buds happening a little bit lower. More may burst along here. We'll just see. We'll see what this little tree gives us. I feel like I'm leaving this one in very much a limbo state. I think I've cut back as much as I dare. I have removed an over thick bit from here, which was shorter and more in keeping, but actually this finer branch is prettier. I'm hoping that some of these other buds will break and I can then cut back to there to bring it more into the overall shape. And like I said, I think the top is too tall and needs to come in, but I'm reluctant to do it yet. Am I? Could I? Could I? It's bursting. Yeah. Heck. Done. So yes, this branch is ridiculously long, but I do want to see what buds push further back here before I go ahead and bring it back in. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye.